The neon signs of Sector 7's marketplace flickered against the perpetual twilight of the space station's artificial atmosphere. Raza pulled his worn jacket tighter as he navigated through the crowd of various alien species, their chittering, humming, and clicking creating a symphony of interstellar commerce. After 3 months of failed job interviews and dwindling credits, desperation had become his constant companion. The small cafe tucked between a Zephyrian crystal merchant and a Karathi weapons dealer looked unremarkable enough. Its sign simply read Warm Haven in standard galactic script. Through the condensation-covered window, Raza could see the soft glow of amber lighting and a few scattered patrons nursing steaming cups. A bell chimed as he pushed through the door, and immediately, the chaos of the marketplace faded to a whisper. The interior was surprisingly cozy, with mismatched furniture that somehow felt intentional, and walls lined with bottles containing liquids of every conceivable color. Behind the counter stood a woman unlike any alien species he'd encountered in his travels. She was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shift between pale blue and silver depending on the light. Her hair cascaded in waves that defied physics, occasionally sparkling with what looked like stardust. Most striking were her eyes, deep violet pools that seemed to hold the wisdom of galaxies. When she smiled at him, her teeth gleamed with an opalescent sheen. "Welcome, traveler," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality that made the words seem to dance in the air. "You look like someone in need of more than just caffeine." Raza approached the counter cautiously. In his experience, when something seemed too good to be true in the outer sectors, it usually was. "Just coffee if you have it," he said, counting the few remaining credits in his pocket. The alien woman, Fiza according to her name tag, studied him with those mesmerizing eyes. "Coffee is such a limited concept," she mused, beginning to move behind the counter with fluid grace. "Humans always ask for coffee, but what you really need is warmth, comfort, hope." Her hands danced over various containers and instruments. "For a warm drink, I can take care of you behind the counter," she whispered, leaning closer. Her breath smelled like cinnamon and starlight. Raza felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. "What exactly are you offering?" Fiza's laugh was like silver bells in a gentle breeze. "Oh, sweet human, your species always assumes the worst. I meant exactly what I said." She gestured to the area behind the counter where an elaborate brewing station sat surrounded by ingredients from across the galaxy. "Come, let me show you how we make real comfort here." Despite every instinct screaming caution, Raza found himself walking around the counter. The space behind it was larger than it appeared from the front, extending back into shadows that seemed to swirl with their own light. Fiza moved to a complex apparatus that looked part chemistry set, part musical instrument. "Your species fascinates me," she said, selecting various vials and powders. "Do you know what makes humans special among all the races I've served?" Raza shook his head, watching as she began combining ingredients with practiced precision. "Resilience," Fiza continued, her movements becoming almost ritualistic. "Other species, when they face hardship, they adapt or they flee. But humans, you endure. You find hope in the darkest places. You make homes out of nothing and families out of strangers." Steam began to rise from her concoction, carrying scents that reminded Raza of his childhood home on Earth. His mother's kitchen, autumn leaves, the warmth of his grandmother's hugs. "I've been running this cafe for 200 of your years," Fiza said, stirring the mixture with a spoon that seemed to be made of crystallized moonlight. "I've served thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds, but humans always surprise me. They come in broken, defeated, ready to give up. And then..." She poured the liquid into a cup that appeared to be carved from a single piece of aurora. The drink inside swirled with colors that had no names, and when she handed it to Raza, the cup felt perfectly warm against his palms. "Take a sip," she encouraged. The moment the liquid touched his lips, Raza felt something extraordinary happen. It wasn't just the taste, though it somehow captured every comfort food he'd ever loved. It was the sensation of being understood, of being seen for exactly who he was beneath the failures and disappointments. The drink seemed to remind his body what hope felt like. "Now," Fiza said, her eyes twinkling with ancient mischief, "let's talk about why you're really here." For the next hour, Raza found himself telling this strange, beautiful alien everything. His dreams of becoming an interstellar trader, his spectacular failures, his fear that he'd never amount to anything in the vast galaxy. Fiza listened, without judgment, occasionally asking questions that somehow helped him see his experiences from new angles. When he finished, she smiled and walked to a small terminal behind the counter. "I know someone who needs a human's particular brand of stubborn creativity, a mercantile guild captain who's been struggling to negotiate with some particularly difficult clients. Interested?" 3 weeks later, Raza stood on the bridge of the merchant vessel Stellar Phoenix, having just successfully negotiated a trade agreement that had stumped the galaxy's best diplomats. His human ability to find common ground and refuse to give up had proven invaluable. He never forgot the cafe or its remarkable owner. Sometimes, when facing impossible odds in negotiations across the galaxy, he could still taste that perfect drink and hear Fiza's words about human resilience. And whenever he passed through Sector 7, he always stopped by Warm Haven, not just for the extraordinary beverages, but to remind himself that sometimes the most profound care comes from the most unexpected places. In the end, he realized that Fiza had been right. She had taken care of him behind that counter, in ways that went far beyond any warm drink. She had reminded him of what it meant to be human in a universe that desperately needed that particular kind of magic.